Welcome to Rick Rack Ruby. I'm Laura Cluvo. Today we will be making the Rosemary Raglan tunic with a peplum skirt. I am making size 18 months, but this pattern comes with every size from 3 months to size 12. It's fun and easy, so let's get started. To make our Rosemary Raglan dress with peplum, let's start with the fabric. The first time I made this project, I mistakenly believed that this fabric was just a toss and that the direction didn't really matter. And then when I finished, I discovered that a lot of the main images, the motifs were upside down. So this time I paid a little bit better attention. The other thing that I noticed is that there's a definite line where the design repeats. It's subtle, but it's there. So I wanted to make sure that I didn't have this line. It's not super obvious, but I do see it. Isn't, dead center or even a little bit off center. But when I cut out my front and my back, I tried to set it this way so that the lines where the repeat happened were kind of on the sides of the front and the back. I'll give you the sources for these exact fabrics. So here is my front, and of course it's already cut out because that is half of the work. So I feel like I'm halfway done whenever I have my pieces cut out. So this way I feel like I'm going to do a little applique heart here, and then I feel like these major motifs are going to be right side up. This one, some of them are still upside down, but this section right here underneath the applique is pretty much right side up. This is the front. I'm going to fold this in half to kind of mark the center. And then I've cut out this heart from this pink striped knit. And I placed the lines on the diagonal. You can do them up and down or across, whatever you like, or you might not even want to add a heart, but I feel like in this project, I don't have any panels, I don't have any coordinates except for this stripe. And so I just wanted to give this a little bit more interest and to make it look a little bit more coordinated, I guess. And I also have made a pair of leggings. This is the Agility legging from Peekaboo Patterns. And this will go underneath. This is a very simple pattern. Just follow the instructions and it's super easy. I used the yoga waistband for that. Anyway, I'm going to line this up and then I'm going to pin it all the way around. I'm not using any kind of an iron-on stabilizer or a Wonder Under or anything like that to affix the applique to the front. I'm just going to pin it and then I'm going to zigzag around the edge. I have put a ballpoint needle onto my sewing machine, my regular sewing machine, and it will make sure that I don't skip any stitches. So let me pin. First, let me make sure it's centered. And then I will zigzag around the edge and I will be right back. Here is my heart applique. Now I cut this out with a die cutting machine. And when you think about it, it's like opening up a can of worms because you can cut out any shape. You can cut out a star or an oval. And I have used my oval to sort of center a specific motif and then applique it to the stripe fabric. Anyway, now I'm going to switch over to my serger and I'm going to add the sleeves and the back. So here's the back and the sleeves. And this stripe fabric, although it's hard to tell, it does have a right side and a wrong side. The right side, just a little bit more distinct. and you can see the ribbing a little bit better, and then the inside or the back is a little less distinct. So right sides together, I'm going to serge up the sleeves and then the back and then the other sleeve to the front. I've sewn these together and examined the seams just to make sure I didn't, catch any little bubbles in there or anything. And the next thing to do is to pin the seam right sides together and then stitch the sleeve all the way to the hem on both sides. There we go. The seams are complete, and we'll turn it right side out. Whenever I'm sewing with stripes, I do make an effort to try to get the stripes to line up when I'm cutting, when I'm pinning, and even when I'm stitching. I do try to make sure those line up, but in the end, they usually don't. Well, this arm does. This is pretty good. I'm not willing to go through the extra steps of basting and doing all those, cutting them out separately and pressing and stretching and hanging, doing all the things that you're supposed to do. I'm not going to go that far, but I do make a small effort. Next is the skirt, which is just a peplum. My granddaughter is 18 months old, and so she's a toddler. And toddlers get up and down, and sometimes if their skirt is too long, it just kind of hangs them up. And so I think this little peplum skirt and then the leggings is going to be perfect for her. The peplum comes in 2 pieces, and we're going to stitch up. These are the side seams. We'll stitch them up right sides together, here and here. Here's the skirt. I'm going to turn it right side out and examine it to determine which, I think this might be the front, because look at that image right there. It's going to be right side up in the perfect position. This guy's right side up, this guy's right side up, this is right side up, so I think this is going to work. But let's look at this side. Yep, these are upside down. So this is going to be the front. I'm going to put right sides together and match up the side seams, pin it, and serge it all the way around. And I know from experience that this will work out just perfectly. The first time I made this project, I made a hood, which is included in the pattern. This pattern has a lot of options. Again, it's the Rosemary Raglan. It has raglan sleeves, which is so easy to sew because you don't have to set it in. You just sew it straight. It's easy. Anyway, this hood is adorable and it turned out great, but I don't have enough of this pink fabric. So for this version, I'm going to do the little neckband. This is the neckband according to the pattern, and I cut one a little bit wider and longer. I'm going to serge up the ends and fold it with the wrong sides together and pin it around the opening and see which one I like better. I decided to go with the neckband that is the length that was indicated on the pattern, but 1/4 inch wider. And because there's no back seam or even a shoulder seam, there's the 2 shoulder seams, but I just decided to put the seam of the neckband, I lined it up with the back of the shoulder seam, and then I pinned it all around. Every time I try to sew a neckband on my serger, I just wind up cutting too much off, and it's kind of a disaster. So I have success sewing a neckband on with my regular sewing machine set to a zigzag and, just a 1/4 inch seam. So that's what I'm going to do. That looks good. It's even all around. It has a lot of stretch, and I forgot to say that just when you cut the band, just be sure that the stripes go this way, right? Perpendicular to the edge. That's a little bit cuter. Now for the hem. For the hem, we're going to do a rolled hem on our sergers. Every serger is different, and I could describe and show you how mine works, but pretty much if you look at your manual and check out rolled hem, you will find the exact instructions for how to work yours. But generally, I will tell you you remove your left needle and the thread, and then tighten up the stitch length. So the stitches are tight like a satin stitch. And then just carefully go along the edge, and you should have a nice finished edge. It kind of looks like a satin stitch. I would recommend practicing on the exact fabric. Like if you have a scrap of your fabric, then just go ahead and practice. I have a scrap. And then you can determine if you need to, make any adjustments. I'm going to practice on this piece here, and I'll bring it back and show you how it looks. I hope you can see my narrow hem. As I was sewing, I was reminded that the upper looper is set to 5, the lower looper is set to 7, and then the needle, I only have one needle, the right needle is on 4. And on my machine, 4 is like neutral. So you tighten up the lower looper to 7, the upper looper to 5, and then the needle is normal. As you're doing a narrow hem, the cutter cuts, and then there's a little bit of space before the needle stitches. And you just want to make sure that you don't pull the fabric away before the needle has its chance to get into the fabric. Because, it's just such a little narrow hem that it's easy for the stitches to go off the edge of the fabric. So just pay attention and don't let the fabric wander over to the left. All right, so let's do it. That thing that I warned you about, that happened to me. These stitches came off the edge. I honestly think the weight of the garment just kind of pulled it off. So if you have one of those level tables for your serger, that would be really helpful. I'm going to go back and repair that. Here's another pro tip from Ruby. Sometimes it's easier, depending on your fabric, it's easier to see what you're doing if you sew the hem from the wrong side, because there's a little bit of a contrast between the back of the fabric and the stitching. I want to add some cuffs. The first time I made this project, I finished off the sleeves with a zigzag, and that looks fine. It's stretchy and it's absolutely fine, but I want to do something different, so I wanted to add cuffs. These are the 3/4 length option on the pattern. You can do them short or long or 3/4. So these are 3/4, and I just wanted to add a cuff. The leggings have cuffs. I think that's cute, so kind of to make it match, I thought we'd do cuffs, but I do not have enough of this pink stripe to do cuffs. So I've cut the cuffs from the print fabric. This is 6.5 wide and 5 inches tall. So I will stitch up the straight sides with my serger. And now I'll fold them back. I think that's about the right size. You want them to be a little bit tighter than the sleeve, but not so tight because a little hand has to get through there. I'll turn this way. And match up the seams, put the cuff inside, and then match up the seam. Oh, I forgot to pay attention to the direction of the print. So let's see. It's actually kind of sideways. So I think we're safe. Match up the seams, pin, and then I'm going to stitch this on my regular sewing machine, and I'm going to stitch from the inside. There we go. Now I'll turn it right side out. See how those cuffs look. That looks good. Very cute. This fabric is so cute. I just don't think you could go wrong. Now, we have one final option, and that is for the inside edge of this neckband. We can top stitch it with a zigzag, which is fine and looks great, or we can use a twin needle. And just in case you've never used a twin needle, and I want to give you some encouragement, I am going to do this with a twin needle. The twin needle looks like this. So you just replace the single needle in your machine with a twin needle. And then you need 2 spools of thread on the top and then the regular bobbin underneath. And I have a pro tip from Ruby. I was at a Joann Fabrics and they had 50% off the whole notions wall. And I was pretty young and I'm staring at all the notions and I didn't know what to get and thinking, oh, well, but they're 50% off. And an older woman, mature woman, probably not as old as I am now, you know, asked me, you know, what I was looking for or something like that. And I said, I just don't know what to get. And she said, well, do you have one of these? And I said, no. And she said, trust me, it'll change your life. And it certainly has. This is some kind of a spool holder from Dritz, and it's absolutely awesome. So I have 2 of them set up right now for my 2 spools of thread. One will go through the left needle, one will go through the right needle, and they go through the same threading mechanism. There's really nothing to it. Let me get it all set up, and I'll be right back. When you're sewing with a twin needle, you have to always work from the top. And so my right hand index finger is going to be feeling along as I sew to make sure that that seam allowance is down against the fabric. And also with a twin needle, you don't want to be in the ditch. You want both lines to be a little bit in. So anyway, I'm threaded, I'm ready to go. It should only take a second, so I'll be right back. Here's how it looks. It stretches. I don't understand how it stretches, but it does. And it looks nice and finished. And there's the cuffs. They look good. I think she's done. Thank you for watching my tutorial. If you're enjoying my videos, please like, share, and subscribe.